What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm excited to have you here. We're going to continue on the path we went down last week and work on some scripting for this story. So make sure you like and subscribe, comment, connect, follow, do whatever you do on the platform you're on. Just look for my furry face inside of the orange circle and click all the buttons next to it. In the last video, I put together the outline and developed all the ideas. And so here I'm going to set some goalposts. I go through and I copy the rough outline that I made in the last video and paste it down below where I'll be writing. And so I go in, and at this point I'm just basically reading over that first act of that outline and deciding how I want to expand all those little paragraphs out and build the story and the world around it. Now that I've looked over what I already wrote in the outline, I can start to decide how I'm going to break those things out. And for me, the biggest difference between the outline and the actual writing is how descriptive things are. So in the outline, I talk about how this person has had a breakthrough and where we see them working, like in a garage or a workshop or something. So as I'm writing that out for the actual script, that's when I start to actually get descriptive, and instead of like telling you those things, I show those things. So for instance, in the script it says that the scientist or the person there makes a breakthrough. Well, I don't want to just say he's working in a shop and he makes a breakthrough. That's something tangible, but it's also boring. And so whenever I'm doing the scripting, what I'm thinking about is, how do things look? How do they smell? How do they taste? How do they sound? And I really want to appeal more to the reader's senses than actually putting things together in front of them. So for instance, a breakthrough, we're going to see this guy, he's going to react to that moment. He's going to pop up, he's going to perk up, his ears are going to raise, his eyes are going to raise, his energy is going to change. He might be joyous, he might let out a sound. So there's ways that you can describe that without ever actually saying it, and that way the reader understands what's going on, but they don't need you to sit there and explain. So the way I start this story out, it's a beautiful blue sky, and that just kind of, like, to me, a clear sunny day really has a certain look and style and tone to it that I think helps set things up properly there. And then in that same paragraph, I turn around and contrast it with what's out in the distance. So you get to see that, there's all these spaceships in the sky. They seem to be leaving the planet. So that kind of indicates there's some sort of exodus. And then I turn around and contrast the open of that paragraph with the end of it by saying, there's an emergency alarms sounds going off and people are running to get inside, and you can see some darkness looming in the distance. And I think that also kind of foreshadows that things are probably going to get worse before they get better in this story. So that's just how I think of a full script versus an outline. The outline has all the major moments and all the actual actions that are happening. But when I get into the scripting process, it's more about describing those experiences in a way that appeals to people's olfactory senses, so that they can feel like they're part of the world and kind of be drawn into what they're reading, instead of just being told this happens, that happens, that happens. Because again, that just goes back to an outline. Here's the plot points. This happens because this happens, cause and effect. And here in the script, I want to actually get descriptive. So whether I give this to a reader who's going to read it and get into the story, or if I give it to a director, he can put together the movie based on all of those things. Or if I give it to a comic book artist, those descriptions are going to help him put together the world as he's drawing it. And by appealing to somebody's senses, they can kind of put it together in a way that makes sense to their sensibilities and allows them to create something that they're really interested in. The other thing I want to point out here, you'll see me doing some self-editing. That's a really bad habit, and it's something that I've worked on a lot and I'm trying to get better at. And as much of it as you see going on here, I'm actually much better at it now than I was before. So it's really hard to not like want to go through and fix every typo and rephrase and restructure things. And I do it a little bit, but I've tried to get a lot better at it. What I will say is oftentimes I'll start a paragraph, I'll have an idea, but then whenever I get to where the next paragraph would go, sometimes like I don't really have any way forward. I can't find a good way forward. And so I'll get rid of a whole paragraph and kind of go back two steps and redirect myself a little bit to get where I'm going. So there is like some self editing that I wish I didn't do, but at the same time, there's some things that I feel are necessary in order to get myself to the point and get the script done. Because again, this is a first draft, so just like I went back before and redid some things, I'll definitely be going back through this script and rewriting a lot of it as I move along. So the scripting is moving pretty quick here. I did speed it up. I definitely do not work this fast. I wish I did. But as you can see, it's kind of coming along, and we get into this nice discussion. And this is part of the formatting kind of stuff. But I like to break up dialogue quite a bit so that I don't have to constantly describe who says what and when they're saying it. By having these smaller pieces of dialogue and moving it back and forth, I feel like the audience should be pretty clear on who's speaking, as long as there's a limited amount of speakers in the, I guess, in the conversation or in the scene. And this particular moment here is just two characters going back and forth. So I don't feel like I need to describe who is speaking when in this format. And so I just break up the dialogue as much as I can into little 1 and 2 sentence bursts. So at this point, I've been working about an hour. I'm starting to feel the ideas kind of dry up. And so part of my wrap up process is to clean things up, because I've always been taught when you do something, you clean up the space you used afterward. And so I think of this as my workspace. And so I go through the document and I clean it up and fix like some formatting things to make it look nice and presentable and easy to read. And then I go back through and do one final pass where I look for like small mistakes, typos, weird phrasing. A lot of times I forget and, or, and, things like that, those little connecting words. And so I like to go back and double check for all that and just make sure that everything I wrote flows well, even if it doesn't necessarily reflect the final product that I want to present. You may have noticed that I type a character's name in square brackets here. It's because it's a placeholder text. So I use find and replace to go back and change like a name. If I can't come up with a name on the spot that I want to use or something to that effect, I'll just put a word in square or curly brackets, and that way I can use find and replace and bulk replace whatever it is later when I have time to really think about that specific element. And that keeps me from having to stop and block off the flow of ideas. So there's an easy tip and trick for you if you ever need to add placeholder to your writing.